Welcome to another episode of the Real Estate Playbook. This week on episode number 63, our guest is Ashley Weyer. Ashley, how you doing today?
I'm doing great. How are you doing today?
Fantastic. So how you been?
I've been well. Very busy, but that's expected, of course.
Awesome. So how was your Thanksgiving?
My Thanksgiving was very good. I spent time with family and played some games. How was your Thanksgiving?
It was good. Got some downtime, ate a lot, did a little relaxing, watched some football. So, it was a good weekend and nice to get back in the groove now.
Absolutely. It sounds like it.
Awesome. So, Ashley, why don't you talk to us a little about, obviously you've been licensed here for some time. A little over a year now, I believe. Is that correct?
Yeah, right around a year.
Okay, fantastic. And what is it that kind of drew you into real estate? What was the motivating factor on why you became a realtor?
Yeah, so at first, it was honestly my boyfriend. He had told me that he thought I would be a great real estate agent. And so at first, I really tried to wholesale without being licensed. So that's where I got started officially. And I realized it's a lot harder than it looks and sounds. So I kind of gravitated towards the traditional side of real estate. And really, I love helping people. So I feel like real estate is the perfect job for me because I get to go see beautiful homes every day while getting to help people.
Awesome. And then tell me a little about the wholesale. So when you were getting in the wholesale game, were you looking to purchase properties for yourself, or was it more of kind of, I don't want to say acting as a real estate agent, but finding properties, lining up potential investors or buyers, and collecting like an assignability fee, assigning the contract?
Yeah, so that's what I was primarily trying to do, was finding the homes, that the rougher homes on the block in a good neighborhood and try to get an assignment fee out of it.
Okay. And what were some of the, I guess for people, there's a ton of people I know who do wholesale, then a lot of people such as yourself that are in the wholesale world come what I would consider retail, using an agent, MLS, going on the market and getting top dollar. What are some of the nuances with the wholesale game that most agents who've never been a part of that world might not be aware of? Like what were some of the, maybe some of the pros and then also some of the cons?
Yeah, so cons, kind of like traditional real estate, you are cold calling people, so a lot of times you get negative feedback there. Pros, I truly loved driving around the different neighborhoods and just, kind of getting to check out areas I may not have seen before. It's always great to go around and, learn more about the community you live in.
Absolutely. So it's kind of a good way to kind of start learning about the real estate, learning about the markets, type of homes, certain price points prior to becoming a licensed agent.
Absolutely, yes. I think that definitely helped whenever I did transition to traditional real estate because, I learned a lot more terms than most who start out.
And I would think, too, with the wholesale game, from what I know, like you're dealing with a lot of, prospects, almost like a cold call. They're not necessarily like what I call a hand raiser. There's not an inquiry. They're not looking to buy or sell. You're kind of identifying the property that, hey, this might be a potential candidate. And were those conversations a little tougher to have than somebody, who's kind of wanting assistance from a real estate agent and, purchase a home or sell a home to move on?
Oh, absolutely. It's a completely different ballgame. I've been cussed out. I've been told anything you could even imagine negatively. So yes.
All right. So definitely quite the learning curve, but I'm sure that helped thicken your skin and kind of get you ready for some of the, rejection that you might incur from starting off in real estate, or especially a newly licensed agent.
Yes, absolutely. I have some thick skin now.
And so for the audience out there, we just found out we got all these fancy little buttons that do all these sounds. So I'm going to be testing them out through this podcast. So we might have a little fun with it. But all right. So prior to real estate, I believe you came down from Indiana. Is that correct?
Yep.
Okay. So you and your boyfriend and daughter?
Yes.
Okay. Came down to Florida, Tampa, Florida area from Indiana. Why don't you tell us a little bit about A, what prompted the move, and B, what were you doing prior to real estate?
Yeah, so we decided to move because it was right at the beginning of COVID and everything being shut down. We had already kind of known we didn't want to live in Indiana forever, and so it kind of gave us an opportunity to explore other places. Indiana was locked down a lot stricter and tighter than Florida was, so yeah, you couldn't really go do anything at that time, and my boyfriend's best friend moved down here about 10 years ago, so he let us come stay with him while we were just checking out the area to ensure this is really where we wanted to be, and after, coming down, checking it out, we knew this was the place for us.
Okay, so coming down, staying here, and was it just kind of like the lifestyle? Is that why you fell in love with the area, or was there more to it?
Yeah, so for me, I hate the cold. So being in the warmth was definitely a positive for me, and the beaches and everything, I didn't really come to Florida too often. Prior to the last few years, of course, living here. I would come down for vacations occasionally with my family, and I've always loved Florida, so
awesome.
It was easy to convince me, yeah.
So obviously coming down during lockdown, wanting to, check out different spaces, not sure, where you were going to lay your roots. Obviously, it ended up being the first destination you stopped at. What were you doing prior? What kind of occupation and things were you doing the wholesale game up in Indiana, or were you in some other sector or some other business?
Yeah, so I actually did a variety of things. I did try the wholesaling to begin with in Indiana, yes. We started doing it in Indianapolis, ironically. We lived there for a year before moving down. And I also was microblading eyebrows at the time.
Nice.
So something very different, yeah. But after doing that for about a year, I knew that was not my true calling, as it was really nerve-wracking. If you mess up, it's someone's face. They have to walk around like that every single day. So, yeah, that's why I wasn't really a fan of microblading.
Yeah, I could see that. It's similar to, I guess, a lot of professions, right? Like obviously, you mess up a contract, that could have huge implications on a transaction in real estate. On the flip side with microblading, if you kind of don't do the job you're supposed to, they might not have the look, I guess, they were going for, to put it subtly.
Yeah.
So microblading, I got to think now, were you finding your own clientele, or were you working for a place where it was somebody who owned the business and they were referring you their clients who were looking for that service?
It was primarily myself finding my own clients. We had only lived in Indianapolis for that year. We moved from southern Indiana, where we've lived our whole lives. So it was a lot different for me, as I didn't really know anybody. So clientele was a little harder to get. I did kind of like the discount services at first to get my name out there to begin with. And then I started getting clients booking with me after doing that, and then running some ads on social media.
So a lot of and obviously, there's going to be a skill set that kind of goes with that occupation that you got to make sure you do your job. But a lot of that, building the business, more of the entrepreneurial spirit, in addition to customer service. Why don't you tell us a little about, because, I'm not sure what you did prior to that, but I know through that journey, I got to think you started to either sharpen your sword or start to develop and build a foundation for a customer service skill set, and then also like an entrepreneurial, like kind of, what if I don't make money unless I kind of find business and find a clientele. So talk to us a little bit about that journey and how those skills started to be developed.
Yeah, of course. So I have always worked in customer service, actually. My very first job, I was working in a restaurant. So I've done a variety of things, and every single job has been, like that. And then I did start getting into more of an entrepreneurial mindset, I would say, maybe like 5 years ago. Actually, my boyfriend and I had started a poop scooping business.
I do remember that, actually.
Yeah, so that's where my very first, I can't even think of the word right now, business venture started out, yes, was doing that. And I honestly didn't think it would work, and it picked up and took off, which is pretty crazy.
So what were some of the things, like the nuances? Was it easy to find clientele kind of in that sector from the microblading, like when you did the poop scooping business, I guess? Because I would think that's not a business many people would think to get into, and if they were to, they probably thought, I don't know if this is going to be profitable and I can afford the lifestyle on that. So why don't you, I think it's a great story to share a little bit of. Why don't you tell us a little bit about that, and what were some things you found out through that venture?
Yeah. So I actually think it was easier finding clients for our poop scooping business, which is crazy. You wouldn't think that, but
We have a niche, right?
yeah, exactly.
Not much competition, I'm assuming.
Yeah, there was no one else in the town who did anything like that. We put up a few billboards actually on a credit card, hoping that it would pay off, and thankfully it did.
Awesome.
Yeah, so when people would sign up, I would typically ask them, how you heard about us. Did you get referred by someone? Did you see our billboards? We also had ran ads for that as well. So we actually got referrals a lot, kind of like in real estate. We got one customer, and that customer thought we did an amazing job, and we had such good competitive pricing because we wanted to see how much clientele that we could get. So yeah, it was really easy finding clients for that. I think probably 10 times easier than finding microblading clients.
Yeah, it seems so, because you're probably the only show in town, so people who did want to utilize that service, if they heard about you, whether through a billboard or word of mouth, you're the only option, so it's probably a little bit easier to pick up market share and kind of grow that business.
Yes, absolutely. And we were actually able to grow that business enough in 2 years that we were able to sell it for a pretty big profit.
Awesome. Well, congratulations.
Thank you.
So some of the things, we talked about kind of developing that skill set prior, coming into real estate. What were some of the things from those businesses, like the skill sets that you developed, that you primarily accredit you having a faster track to success with real estate? Like, what were some of the things that you learned, in addition to what you've already shared, that helped you kind of get into sales quicker and have a better understanding, where some people who kind of jump in real estate without any background in any other ventures might struggle a bit or not have that wisdom that you developed?
Yeah, for me, I think a big pro is that I'm a very big people person. So I am not selfish at all. I really listen to what clients want, and I take that into heart and truly try to make sure that I give them the best service possible.
Awesome. So kind of just over-indexing, going all in on the customer service experience, and just making sure you're kind of giving that world-class red carpet treatment to your clientele, and the business sectors that you were in prior to learning it helped you have that mindset coming into that hey, what it was going to take to kind of win these people over, and then to kind of get them to utilize you with this new venture.
Yes, absolutely. That, and just always being friendly and welcoming. Doesn't matter what time of the day, you're always welcome to reach out to me for help.
Awesome. So let's talk about, everybody talks about, some of the pros, what they learned from real estate, getting into it, some of the, I'll share the good. Not that many people do share the bad. So what's one thing maybe when you got into real estate, now obviously you had a little background on the wholesale, but what's one thing you didn't expect? Like, what's the one takeaway that a lot of people who are new to real estate or thinking about getting into it, might take for granted? And do you have any, one nugget of information, or maybe something that, I didn't think of that prior to getting into real estate?
Yeah, so I think the biggest piece of advice would be to stay patient. From an outsider looking in, a lot of people think that real estate agents don't do much on our end. We just sit back, get a home, write the contract, and there we go. We have a check waiting for us. But there's so much more to that. You have to deal with issues that may arise. Maybe grumpy sellers or buyers who don't agree with maybe what the other party is asking. So my biggest advice is absolutely stay patient and just realize a lot more things will come up in a transaction than what you think. I wish it was all butterflies and rainbows, but it's not. This is real estate. This is the real world.
So I'm going to summarize that, and correct me if I'm wrong, by managing expectations and emotions. Like, you were thinking, hey, you knew you had to do this. There's a certain level of service. You kind of had a fundamental principle and understanding of what it was going to take, but just kind of managing the emotions that go into the buying and selling process, as well as kind of creating a boundary, setting expectation on the forefront you probably weren't aware of as much as you were through the process of, getting into sales and selling real estate.
Yes, absolutely.
Okay, very good. So right now, obviously, the market's shifting a bit, with rates kind of going up and prices accelerating as high as they were. We're kind of seeing sales stagnant. I don't think Unlike most, I think, in today's market, I don't think prices are going to drop substantially. I think they'll tend to stabilize. Right now, we are dealing with inventory problems, and I'm hoping, I don't want to say expecting, but I'm anticipating that rates will start to trickle down, first or second quarter of next year. But right now, while sales are down, what's like one thing that you're all in are doing in this market? What's one thing that you're hyper focused on, something that's allowing you to ensure that you're having the level of success you experience in a market where there were more transactions, and kind of helping you deal with this transition that we're currently in?
Yeah, so I'm really trying to work on my social media presence so that I can grow my SOI base while times are slower. I'm also helping out a few other agents and just trying to learn as much knowledge from them while it's a slower time in the real estate world. So that way, when it does pick up again, then I will be an even greater agent.
Absolutely. Let's talk about that a little bit. I want to dive in the social media aspect, because I think social media is such a critical component of becoming a real estate agent. Whether it's fortunate or unfortunate, in a society where they love voyeurism, they like to know who you are, what you do. All the reality shows, everything's kind of based on that concept, podcast, a lot of people watching them on videos, whatever it might be. When you first started social, I know a lot of agents always have the mindset that, hey, they know they got to be doing it, but 90% of them don't. And the primary reason I hear is they don't want to be on camera, they don't know what to say, or they don't know what to do, they don't have a plan. And it ends up honestly being a lot of excuses. Tell us at the beginning, when you were thinking about doing social media, you obviously, as most know, that, hey, this is a critical component for me to have the success that I'm wanting to have. Was there any hesitation for you to get started?
There was some hesitation, those excuses that you're talking about. I was kind of putting those in my head myself as well. And then I went to the Tom Ferry convention earlier this year, and they were talking to us about how social media is everything now, getting your face out there so people start to recognize you and realize you are one in their community. After I went to the Tom Ferry convention, I think it really just motivated me even more. So right then and there, I created my first reel, and I was like, you know what? We're doing it, and we're not looking back. Yep.
So then you kind of got out of that hesitation. You're at the event. Was it kind of like in a group setting? Like when you say there, are you actually doing it at the event, or are there other people doing it with you? Almost like this camaraderie or family kind of, hey, we're all kind of nervous to do it, but we're all going to do it together. If they can do it, I can do it type of thing?
Yeah. So they actually had told us, everyone get out your phone, open Instagram. We're going to make a reel right now. They walked us through everything. I think I was sitting there and I was just like, hey, this is Ashley. I'm coming to you from Orlando, trying to up my skill set. So just showing I was there and, working on myself.
That's awesome. Maybe we should try that here one of these days.
We should. There's so many agents that I see that come talk to me about my content and how they love it. And I'm like, why aren't you doing it? And they're like, no, I don't want to. And I'm like, no, just do it. I promise it's not that bad. So
you're kind of, and there's going to be a lot of critical points that I want to talk through your journey with this. And I think everybody goes through it, including myself. So you're kind of, in your own headspace, right? You should be doing this. The only reason you haven't is, you have a million excuses, to be honest. You finally kind of go to an event, you pay money to, you're pushed over the fence, everybody's doing it. So it's kind of like this, almost like, all right, you feel one, a little bit more self-confident because other people are doing it. But two, you're kind of guilted into doing it because you're like, gosh, I got to do it. Everybody else is, I can't be the only one. After you did your first, was any of that hesitation still in your mind?
I think a little bit of hesitation was still in my mind. I was overthinking things. I was like, is my background looking good enough? I got to make sure everything's completely clean that's in the picture. Is my hair great? I was overthinking it a little bit, but then I just put it out of my mind and decided I'm just going to keep making them. And the more I made, I think the easier it became for sure.
Yeah, and I think definitely, I think everybody kind of gets that mental roadblock at first, but as you do it, and you do your first, it's like, okay, it's not that bad. And like, when I would do it, shooting, I'm not doing it as much as I should these days, but when I was shooting the videos and I had people kind of doing all the photography, I kind of did one or two here or there, then I'd go in, we'd shoot like 20 videos at a time, and they would post them, and then, I was fortunate enough to have people kind of manage my social accounts for me, so they would handle the interaction, kind of snip it, get it out to everybody and all that good stuff. But I would just go shoot. I didn't really pay too much attention to watching the videos. I think that's one thing a lot of people get in their head is they'll watch their videos, see how they look. Hey, did I slip up? It has to be perfect. And truth be told, if you look at statistics of top performing podcasts or videos, it's usually they want it organic. They don't want any of these like fancy backdrops. They want somebody to be human, not this picture perfect person who says all the right stuff or looks perfect. And I think that you're able to connect by just being an authentic version of you. Did you kind of find that through your journey of doing this as well? And maybe some of the beliefs you had, you realized were false through kind of going through this?
Yeah, absolutely. I definitely found that they were false as I started making the videos. I think my second or third one, it ended up getting almost 1,000 views instantly.
Wow.
So I was like, wow, this really does work. And I remember it was right after I had my back surgery. I had my big back brace on. I was sitting on my bed. It was dirty in the background. So all those things I feared at first, I just didn't really care about, did it, and it paid off.
Well, it makes you relatable, and it kind of makes you look like a human, and honestly, you're showing an authentic version of yourself. So what I believe that does is it helps you gain trust through video, because people see that you're not a gimmick, you're not putting something on for show. There's like, if you see all this kind of like fancy stuff and somebody always using the perfect words, having the perfect segments, a lot of people subconsciously might think, hey, what's going on here might be somewhat of a scam. But when you're kind of this raw, authentic version of yourself, then you kind of start to build almost not only an audience, but trust with the people that are watching your videos. And one thing is, like on the podcast, like we really don't edit this. We just let it rip. If something messes up or we say something, it kind of goes. There's no cutting it out or, hey, doing a retake. And I think just having that authenticity really helps you build the audience and help solidify your brand and help people identify for who you truly are.
Yeah, definitely. I've actually had a few people recognize me out in public now, and they're like, oh, "You actually loves Florida." And I'm like, yeah, I am. They're like, "Oh, I watch your reels all the time." I actually ran into an agent who works at Keller Williams who said they've talked about me at the brokerage before. So that's a good feeling. I must be doing something right.
And isn't that, I don't know, weird is going to be the word that comes to my head. Kind of weird, like you're kind of building an audience, going after buyers and sellers. You're like, wait, Keller Williams, I'm not a brokerage, I don't know any agents there. Why are y'all talking about me there?
Yeah, it was very odd. We kind of spoke a little bit about it, and I think that he had just said that they do some classes, and in the class someone had brought up one of my reels, so that they showed it to
That's awesome.
the brokerage, yeah.
You should be doing the class then.
I have held a few classes here for people who want to try to do the reels, everyone who's scared to get started, and just try to motivate them. Just get started and do it.
Maybe social media coach is in your horizon in the near future.
I've thought about it. I really have.
Awesome. So then kind of when you're, building this audience with agents, my takeaway on this, and I think why it has such an impact, and I think it's a very good takeaway for people to take away from the session, is that not that many people are doing it. Still, everybody knows that video should be done. Everybody knows, you can build your brand, you're able to connect. It's probably one of the most economical ways for you to start gaining business without having a hefty budget. However, still people don't do it. And then when you do it, and I'm just going to speak for myself, but I'm assuming that you'll probably agree with this as well, is you're putting out the content, but you're like, hey, I just want to get it out there. I want people to know who I am. But you're like, this isn't that great. It's just something I'm putting out. I know I need to be doing it. I'm going to keep getting better. But right now, let's just let it rip, see what happens. Then you hear these things and you're like, what the hell is going on?
Yeah.
Is it kind of like that shock is, is like, all right, well, I'm just doing this. It's nothing special. And I think the special part is nobody's doing it.
Yeah, I agree completely. Everyone wants to, but it's just the getting started, like we've talked about, being too in their head.
Yeah. And I think that just kind of having that mindset, and I always say in business, you want to have that degree of separation. You want to be, everybody can kind of keep on an equal playing field, but then there's going to be something that might separate you from the competition. And obviously when it comes to video content creation, I still think there's a huge void of that in the real estate community. There's some people who do it at a very high level, and there seems to be a massive gap and a drop off to people not doing it at all.
Yeah.
So I think it's still a great time for you to build a brand. And if you're serious about this business, something that I think needs to be considered and taken seriously, because it's going to help you build that audience. And then come to find out, more experienced agents who might have higher sales than you will be talking about you at their sales meetings.
Yeah, it's crazy to think about it that way. I never thought about that.
So right now, obviously, you came into the brokerage, had a high level of success, doing well. There's a lot of agents out there, some not even licensed yet. Maybe they're going through the course, the process. Others newly licensed. Or maybe there's an agent that's struggling. They got in when the market was good, post-COVID. Sales have died down a little bit. They're not sure what to do. They're kind of stuck in this conundrum of what to do next. If you could share like one takeaway, one tidbit of information for a newly licensed or maybe a struggling agent who's been doing real estate for a little bit, what would be the one thing that you're all in on and kind of over-index to help build their brand and get into sales quicker?
Yeah, I think it is to not be afraid to ask for help or for coaching. I think that people get into real estate and then they get nervous and don't want to ask for help, so they're not getting, the information they need to succeed. So I definitely feel like that's probably my biggest advice is that, and to stay patient. And just because you get a home under contract doesn't mean that you're going to close. So don't count that as your check already.
Yeah. Don't go spending the money yet.
Yeah, not until you physically have it.
Absolutely. Well, Ashley, it's been a pleasure. For anybody in the real estate market who might be looking to buy or sell a home, or maybe it's an agent who might have questions and wants to reach out to you on some tips about the social media marketing, or what are the reels on Instagram you talk about, or what are some of these things you're doing to gain traction, what's the best way for the audience to get a hold of you? If you can give them the best number and best email to reach you on.
Yeah, so you can look me up on Instagram. My Instagram is Ashley Loves Florida, all one word. And then you can also reach out to me at any time. My number is 813-444-0396.
All right. Well, awesome, Ashley. It was a pleasure having you. We'll get that information shared on the social media platforms when we post this podcast. We appreciate your time and dedication and being a guest on this week's podcast. And for all the audience, thank you for tuning in to another episode of the Real Estate Playbook.
Thanks for having me.